Good morning, or afternoon, or evening, whenever you're listening, wherever you are. Now, normally we record these episodes on the Sunday or Monday, reacting to the previous weekend's football, so we never really get to talk about the Champions League. But this time, as the episode has been uploaded on the Wednesday, after the Tuesday Sheriff defeated Real Madrid at the Bernabeu 2-1, it wouldn't be right not to pay homage to that result. Thank you to Sheriff Tiraspol. I don't even know if I got that name right. But thank you for one of the biggest FUs to the Super League to date, if not the biggest. Have a lovely time. Enjoy the episode. Did anything happen in Europe other than Roma Lazio? I don't think so. There's nothing. There's just nothing.
No, I wouldn't worry about it anyway.
Premier League or nothing, mate.
Hello and welcome back to Just Another Football Podcast. Today is Harry's birthday as we record. We are going to be joined by Harry first on his birthday. He was at the ground watching Arsenal absolutely destroy Tottenham in the first half and then concede a goal in the second half to win 3-1. Let's get Harry's thoughts on Arsenal-Tottenham first, and then we will be back with Fergal and George. Happy birthday, Harry.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. It was actually yesterday.
As we record.
Recording.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is why I've had to join slightly later because I definitely wasn't hungover. To be fair, I had a bit of a hoarse voice after the Arsenal game.
It's showing on your voice now.
Yeah. So if it's like this now, you can probably imagine what it was like 24 hours ago. So
yeah.
Sort of less than ideal, but otherwise it's been a great weekend, mate. It's been really nice.
Great. You were at the ground, obviously, for the game. When was the last time you had as good a time at the Emirates?
Oh, well, I'd say kind of like atmosphere-wise, probably the closest thing that comes to it is probably the last time we beat Spurs with fans on the ground, which was the
4-2.
4-2.
Yeah. Wow, that's ages ago. That's a great game.
I think it was a great game, and I think there was something about the way we won it that kind of contributed towards the atmosphere, like cause sort of coming from behind after half time, and kind of in the fashion we did it made it an atmosphere. And I think it's kind of slightly different to yesterday, where I actually think the atmosphere was as a result of a lot of the players that were playing. I think actually this group of players, although kind of the table has them in 10th as we sort of record this, I think there's a lot of them, the fans are really behind. I think it's the one thing I'd give Arteta credit for since the international break. He's basically ripped it all up, played his players, and the fans are really getting behind it. And, you know, that was evident yesterday when we raced into a 3-0 lead. The atmosphere was fantastic.
Yeah, and speaking of the 3-0 lead, I mean, Tottenham were obviously absolutely horrific, and we're just coming off the Brighton Palace game is on right now. You'll have watched Monday night, obviously, in their analysis of how poor Spurs were and how much space they left behind. What did you see Arsenal rather do well? Let's forget about Spurs for a second. What changed for Arsenal? Is it just a case of identifying those weaknesses and executing them, or was there something palpably different about how Arsenal approached this game relative to the first three?
So,
let's say.
I think essentially what you've got is two things can be true at once, right? So Spurs were really poor, which we'll speak about in a second, and their midfield especially was absolutely diabolical. But equally, if you don't have the kind of the tools to exploit that, then it doesn't really matter. And I think that the big thing for Arsenal, certainly last season, certainly when you first spoke to me on this podcast, it was how Arsenal didn't have any centrality to their play. They were always going down the wings and putting crosses in. And so I think what's changed, and the two guys that got the headlines were obviously the HLM boys, Saka and Smith Rowe, and they were absolutely phenomenal. I don't want to take anything away from them. I think two guys that kind of gone under the radar, so to speak, are the two guys that have made the difference to our central spine, which is Partey and Ødegaard.
Yeah.
And I think what they did is they allowed us to play through Spurs, pick up those loose balls, and actually have centrality to our play. And obviously, as you've sort of seen from the analysis, Spurs were wide open. They were there to be exploited, and we were able to do that really nicely. But I think those two guys are the absolute key to what we're doing at the moment. Having a fully fit Thomas Partey, it's so important to us. I feel like because it's been so stop-start for him since
Yeah.
he's come to the club. I think people have actually kind of forgotten or not been able to experience, maybe for an Arsenal player, just how good this guy is. He is transformative for the way we play. Now, it might be that the ceiling for that isn't, much higher than sixth or fifth, but you take him out of that team and we're a completely different side. And to be honest with you, the same goes for Odegaard. As good as Smith Rowe is, he's a different sort of player. And I think you need someone that's going to drop into those pockets, hold the ball under pressure, and be able to pick key passes. And that's kind of what Odegaard does. He's very good at getting the assist before the assist, so to speak.
Mhm.
So, his assists and goals numbers might not be through the roof. I remember that was one of the things that was picked up from his loan spell,
Mhm.
but it kind of doesn't necessarily tell the true story. He's very good at playing key passes, getting
He's a
people into
number
good
8
positions. Yeah,
rather than the number
I
10.
think so. I think so. In the last few games, he's played as a number 8 in a kind of a 4-3-3 along with Smith Rowe. And while he gets into positions that maybe a number 10 does, it doesn't always kind of translate into him playing the final pass. He kind of plays, as you said, the pass before the pass, which is
Yep.
kind of what you see from a number 8. But I'm absolutely thrilled with his contribution. So that was the big thing for me, Ali, with Arsenal, is that they were able to kind of exploit just how poor Spurs were,
Mhm.
because their spine, and I include the centre backs in this, I thought they were really good. Like the spine of the team was really, really solid.
Speaking of how how poor Spurs were, it's a perfect time to get into the Spurs slandering session of the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're excited about that, right?
I-
With some of the goals they conceded, let's talk about them defensively first, since we were just coming off talking about Arsenal offensively. With the Harry Kane, I think that ties up into their build-up play as well. Harry Kane losing the ball for that, I think the third goal. So one he fell over the ball. There were 6 players ahead of him. What? Why? Why do you have the your box-to-box midfielder at the edge of the area with a normal build-up play thing where you only have one other midfielder and your 2 center backs, so the full backs really pushing high up, which means there's 6 players ahead of Harry Kane, and then he loses it, and you're done. Like, you're done for.
Yeah.
You have 5 against 3 immediately. I did not understand that.
You're not the only one. You don't kind of realize these things necessarily in the ground. So, like, sort of when I was watching it live, I did think, blimey, like this is very, very easy for us to turn defense into attack at times.
See,
like,
that's telling that you've identified how easy it is to turn defense into
you've
attack
seen
at
it
the
live.
ground.
Yeah. And there are certain things you can see live that are sort of maybe the television wouldn't show, so sort of stuff that goes on out of shot.
Mhm.
But it was only really when I watched it back on Match of the Day, it was the first time last night, that I just realised how poor Spurs' midfield was. I mean, it was telling that Ali went off at half time.
Yeah,
I think
he was
Underbelly went
lost.
off in the second half as well, and he could have been off at half time just as easily. It's very difficult for me to kind of apportion blame on this one, because I've very much been of the opinion that the group Spurs have isn't very good. Like, and I didn't want to jinx it before the game and sort of go heavy on that, and then they end up beating us. But I don't particularly rate their squad. I definitely don't rate their midfield. But as you said, it seemed so apparent that they were kind of under instruction to go direct, because they cannot progress the ball through the midfield. So
I
they were
mean,
going direct.
Ndombele is probably the only one that has the capability to do that, and a good Dele Alli, but a good Dele Alli doesn't really exist anymore.
We haven't seen a good Dele Alli for years, and this is sort of the problem. So, they seem to go very direct, and then one of the observations I sort of had at the game yesterday was we just were first to every second ball when it mattered. In that first half especially, we always picked up the scraps and kind of built from there. And it was almost like Spurs went direct and didn't really have a plan for, oh, well, if the ball drops, we'll get men around it and we'll make it difficult for them to progress, or we'll get in there and win it. So Kane lost a lot of the aerial duels, and then
He did.
they just got caught in transition so easily. So I'd be really worried. Kind of my observation on Spurs for a while, if I'm honest, Ali, has been
Mhm.
they've got a problem coming, and I don't know if they're oblivious to it or they just aren't accepting of it. What you see with Arsenal this season, and it's quite befitting that the teams are on the same amount of points at the moment.
Yeah.
But we're kind of going one direction, and it remains to be seen whether that works, whether this kind of project youth and growing the squad as one and hitting the reset is going to be a success. But let's be honest, it had to be done. It absolutely had to be done. The profile of that squad needed completely resetting. We needed to get the older guys and the guys
Yep.
on the high wages off the books and go again with guys that are young, hungry, determined. And all those things were on show yesterday. And if you
Yeah.
kind of compare that to Spurs and the way they've held on to some of their players, not just this season, but in previous seasons, holding on to Ali when he wanted to go on loan last season, holding on to someone like Alderweireld, I think on Dombele, it just isn't working, And I think that it's been obvious for a while that, I don't think he's completed a full 90, or he's completed one full 90 in 2 years, I think I read, which is it's just
It's
incredible in
insane.
the Premier League, that is. I
Yeah.
think he played a full 90 against Sheffield United last season, and that was the first time he'd done it since December 2019, I think, which is just it's incredible. So
I
I
mean,
think Spurs needed to rebuild, and I think that the ideal way to do that, and maybe it kind of brings it onto a Kane discussion, is I
yeah.
think they should have sold Kane. I really think they should have cashed in on him, and
And use that chance to rebuild,
yeah,
recruit well, which they
uh,
don't do.
no, and it was quite telling actually that none of their signings started yesterday, whereas Arsenal started four of theirs and brought. By the end of the match, Arsenal had all their new signings on the pitch, and that's not to say they're all going to be a success. Far from it, but that I promise you, as someone that's been in the ground and seen it, I saw it when we played Norwich. It was the first thing I saw on the podcast afterwards. Fans get behind that. There's freshness to it. There's kind of
Mhm.
this idea of, well, we haven't seen these guys before. We haven't seen them fail. We haven't seen their flaws. There's a newness to it, and people like that.
There's a sense of
People are,
anticipation and like positivity with
yeah,
like you basically looking forward rather than predicting or expecting. You know what I mean?
definitely. Whereas with
And
Spurs,
yeah,
none of their guys started. It
yeah.
felt very stale. It felt very safe, tried and tested, and ultimately failed, right? These are guys that haven't really lived up to expectations, bar maybe Kane and Son. I
Mhm.
don't know, maybe Højbjerg, people seem to rate him. I'm not massively, but apart from that, you've got a lot of the same players that haven't cut the mustard at the moment.
With how things went in the game itself, because of how much it failed, I think a reason for that is the early kind of mistakes and the early goal that went in. I think
Mm,
Spurs were just like rattled in the first 10 minutes by how much Arsenal forced errors. And
mm.
at the end of it, a half an hour in, the game was done. Like, I don't think Tottenham really picked themselves up after that. But what impressed me about Arsenal in the second half, because of the intensity of the press in the first, is how they changed their defensive approach. And granted, they conceded a few chances. I think the clearest one is the Harry Kane, which actually he did brilliantly to get that touch and set himself and then chip it, but it ended up going wide. And that's a much harder chance than it looks, in my opinion. But how Arsenal managed to, rather than press, it was a little bit more patient, and it forced Tottenham into going sideways and backwards and sideways and backwards. And there's
It was
this letter.
structured.
Yeah, it was very well structured as well. And it forced Tottenham into this letter U build up where it
Yeah, the
just doesn't
horseshoe,
progress
the
forward.
dreaded horseshoe.
The
No,
horseshoe,
absolutely.
exactly.
And I've seen it with Arsenal where teams, it's exactly that, go into a structure. Um, and ultimately, I think Arsenal, the only thing I'd be critical of with Arteta is he should have made changes and kept the freshness, because players were they were cramping at the end. The
Mhm.
likes of Xhaka and Saka.
There was
And
one
ultimately,
moment
that's why
where
they
two
scored.
were down at the same time with the cramp.
Yeah, it was those two.
Yeah.
And they probably both should have gone off at that point. And they both did go off afterwards.
Mhm.
Xhaka, unfortunately, with an injury. I don't know how serious that is, but God, I'm losing my voice. Yeah. And then Saka went off afterwards. And I think if he'd made changes, I don't think we would have conceded. But it was a really measured second half. And it was ultimately saying to Spurs, look, we know what you're not very good at. There's a reason they've got the lowest shots per game in the league, or I think they're 19th or 20th for shots per game.
Mhm.
Their XG is one of the lowest in the league.
It's worse than Norwich.
They don't
Their
create
attacking numbers
chances.
are worse than Norwich at the moment. And there was there was a Twitter post I saw. I don't know how much truth there is to it, but it was a Tottenham account, and not the official account, obviously, but like a fan account or a podcast or something. And it was like Nuno Santo responding to questions about how attackingly how dreadful they are, and then he goes, "We have to work harder. We have to work harder. We have to work harder."
Mm.
And it doesn't
That
really
that
cut it, right?
no, it doesn't. It doesn't cut it when they're. I saw yesterday they've run the least amount of distance in the league.
That's true as
So
well.
they aren't. That is not what you want to be branded with. You do not. This is Tottenham pre Pochettino, the team
Hmm.
that were lazy, the team that ran the least in the league, had the worst work ethic, down tools. I'm not saying they've down tools on Nuno, but that is a really worrying performance 6 games into his tenure. It kind of
Yeah.
is a wider discussion here. You know, I think he's a bit of a stopgap. I don't think you give a guy a 2-year contract when he's like 9th on your list.
Yeah, I
If
think
he's anything more than a
it's
stopgap.
definitely not a it's a short-term plan to I think Tottenham have kind of realized that for them to get back to where they envisage themselves to be after getting to Champions League finals, challenging for league titles few years ago. To get back to
Yeah,
that level, it will take a little bit longer, and I think that was the plan for Nuno Espirito Santo, is to kind of steady it a little bit, and then kind of in the meantime figure out their long term plan. But I
yeah.
think there's a realization at Tottenham that they're not there. They're far from the top. Um,
Oh, massively.
but
And like for reference, that if this game had gone the other way, we'd have been saying exactly the same thing about Arsenal. I think the
yep,
only kind of difference with it all is Arsenal are clearly behind Arteta. They could have easily sacked him last season when we were 15th at Christmas, and it
yeah,
looked like the players were downing tools on him. And
I
you can
thought they
kind of
would
debate
actually.
the merits of sticking with a manager like that or not. But the one thing I would say is if you do that, what it says to these players is we're sticking with this guy. You're not going to get him sacked like you got the previous guy sacked. Like if you down tools, we'll get rid of you. Like you'll go before the manager. So I think whereas with Tottenham, I don't see that kind of same show of faith in the manager. So like ultimately, if they keep putting in poor performances like this, I think his job's going to be on the line. It really looks quite worrying from early doors.
It's 6 games in, but yeah, 3 defeats
Yeah.
on the bounce, but conceding 3 goals on each occasion is not a great look. And having kept a clean
No.
sheet for the first 3 games, now they're behind Arsenal on goal difference. That tells a
Great.
little bit of
Glorious
the
times,
story.
mate.
Yeah, tells a little
Absolutely.
bit of the story. But I'll tell you what, I want your thoughts as a final kind of closing thought. Takahiro
Yeah.
Tomiyasu, man of the match. Talk to me.
Brilliant. He's brilliant. I think again, I'll sort of do the comparison. We were sort of rumoured to be interested in Emerson Royale. Tottenham ended up getting him. Didn't play him until half time, and I certainly know who I think looks the better player at the moment. I think Tommy Tomiyasu has been excellent. He's been exactly what we needed.
Granted, a small
I
sample
said,
size, but it's fair.
it is of course. I just thought it was sort of means for comparison.
Yeah.
I said to my dad yesterday, the best right back I've seen in my lifetime at Arsenal is Bakary Sagna. And there's a kind
Mm.
of an air of Bakary Sagna about him. He's very good in the air, very good 1 versus 1. Seems like he's kind of going to be a 7 out of 10 every week. Maybe not as good going forwards, although he's very good passer. He's technically reliable. And 3 games hasn't been dribbled past. I don't think like anyone's really looked like getting the better of him. As we said, small sample size, but everything I've seen so far suggests that he's very good fit for our system. The way he tucks in and kind of forms this back three and he's able to bomb forward. I'd much rather he's doing it than Granit Xhaka dropping in and kind of vacating the midfield. So good signs.
Great signs. Great signs indeed. I think he's looked like he's fitting in perfectly, to be honest. But Harry, with a sore voice on the day after the night before,
I'm
of the
sorry,
birthday.
I keep having to mute. I keep bursting into coughing fits. I'm so sorry.
That's the kind of dedication we have from Harry on
I
Just
know.
a Football Podcast. What a legend. And happy birthday. I'm sure you enjoyed it.
Absolute pleasure, mate.
All right, and we're back to the here and now. Hello, George. How's it going?
Yeah, very well, very well.
How's your weekend?
It's been great. I've been in the lovely city of Liverpool. I do love the city. I wish I didn't. For some reason, I've got this vendetta against Liverpool, but it's a beautiful city. And it's a good night out as well. But,
it's a city I'd love to visit for sure. Fergal, how was your weekend then?
Oh, good. Yeah, no, can't complain. Watching a bit of the Ryder Cup, which was a shame the way it went. But it was nice to see Shane Lowry have a couple of nice moments. Good Irishman, and Rory got a bit emotional at the end, but enough about golf.
I'm going to be honest, that's the first time I've heard that name in my entire life. But anyway, there's a lot of football that happened this weekend. So we just talked to Harry there about Tottenham and Arsenal and the way Tottenham just didn't get into the game in the first half. Did you have any thoughts about Arsenal Tottenham at all? Like, what stood out to you? What do you think went wrong for Tottenham in the first half?
For me, like Tottenham, this has been a recurring problem, but they just haven't been. I mean, they've been found out the last 3 games, but the first couple, they got it quite lucky and fortunate. For me, the problems were clear. Their midfield occupying defensive spaces was absolutely terrible. And you've got to look to Højbjerg and Dembele for that. I think for the first goal, both Højbjerg and Dembele like press Saka in what would be Tottenham's fullback position, and Reguilon's there as well. So there's 3 players occupying one like a really tight space on the left hand side of the box.
Yeah.
And it's a shambles because there's three runners for Arsenal that don't get picked up. Dele Alli makes a late burst into the box to try and recover, but obviously it's way too late. And it's good footwork by Saka, and it's a good assist and a good goal. But Tottenham don't look good, and that's one of Nuno's strengths. You'd say is probably their sort of defensive ability. So very disappointing.
You know what?
I don't get why Eric Dyer hasn't been, or why Eric Dyer's still getting the game when they got Christian Romero.
Yeah.
He's so
That's very
hyped
true.
up, and he's just I keep assuming every time I see him in the team, I keep assuming, God, he must be really solid in the games I don't see, or like it just like you're just like, oh, Eric Dyer, solid centre back, isn't he? And then you're like, you see him and you're like, no, he's exactly how I remember. Why is he in this team? Especially when you've bought someone. I don't think he's any particular personality traits that, he's not. I don't think of him as a great leader either, that he deserves to be in the team based on that or anything. But on an Arsenal's perspective, I thought Tommy Asu was really good.
Yeah. Yep.
Because I didn't know, I'd never heard of the lad until he got linked, and then there was like people taking the piss out of him a bit, and like how he was shopped around the Premier League clubs. And all that might be true, and the whole clip about on Sky Sports, but he suits Arsenal. From what I can see, he suits Arsenal perfectly. He's slightly more defensive. He was really proactive in his defending, on the front foot. A lot of intercepting and keeping it tidy. Very simple, but doing the simple things really well. And he was dominant. And Party just being back is massive for them as well, because he is really good.
Party's
it's making my prediction of 6th at the start of the season. I feel a bit more confident with it.
It will be. It's still incredibly difficult to make any predictions based on the fact that Arsenal lost the first 3 games and Tottenham won the first 3 games, and now they're equal on points, both at 9. Arsenal, I think, are above on goal difference now.
Before we maybe move on, I do want to just say that Arsenal aren't incredible.
Not yet,
This is a great performance,
Mhm.
and I expect them to do well. And same as Fergal, I think I predicted them to finish sixth, and that's looking a lot better for me now. So I don't want to praise Arsenal too much because
Yeah, it's only the
that'll come
start.
from
Let's see
Harry.
if they can carry on and keep it
They
consistent.
have to put. They had a bad run. It was understandable given the games.
Yeah,
They're now on a good run. Now can they add the consistency that's
Yep.
been lacking and beat the teams they're meant to beat? Brighton will be a good test, but every game is going to be a test for the side, and it's just about getting the consistency in.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
where they are, they're going to have a bad run, but it's acceptable because you can still have a bad run and still get sixth.
yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, it's a step, definitely a step forward, a big step forward beating Spurs.
But moving on to your boys, guys, Chelsea.
We have
pretty. We do. I'm afraid pretty comprehensive one for a 1-0 defeat, isn't it?
Man City they're totally dominant. I think it's probably the best performance from a team this season so far. With regards to Chelsea, I thought the midfield were, after singing their praises last week about we're seeing different sides to Kante, Jorginho, and Kovacic and how they're so good at progressing the ball up the pitch. I was non-existent in the first half. They could not get out. I feel that a lot of it was to do with them. The Timo Werner and Lukaku, two up top, didn't link up as I would have thought, and Lukaku had a poor game. I thought it was down to a lack of service, but there was a couple of poor touches. Like in that game, I would have been thinking, if we had Olivier Giroud on the bench, I would have maybe thought, can we bring him on to do the job? Because he just wasn't good in the target man role. There's like he wasn't, it wasn't absolutely terrible. He managed to roll it. He actually, it was like the one time he was able to pin Laporte back, rolled him, and he got Laporte a yellow card. I was just thinking, if you had got that a few more times, he would have caused him a problem because Laporte wouldn't have been able to make the same challenge again. And then he done the same with Diaz as well, except it was really late on, and Diaz came flying in, and it was just he should have been. There's a couple of times where the ball just he couldn't control it, couldn't win the header. But it was down to Man City as well. I don't want to go too hard on Lukaku because I don't think he was the main culprit. But I thought out of the two, I thought Timo Werner had a better game, and it was just disappointing that the sort of typical stereotypes about Lukaku are coming back. Flat track bully, can't do the link up play. Those were evident to be seen, and I just hope that it's not a trend for it to come in. It is a one-off, but we have seen it before that. Then regards to the midfield, which I have the real big issue with. To be honest, I thought I know George, you'll have a different opinion, but I actually didn't mind the team, and I get the thinking of it. And I think based on the previous performances, it makes sense because you would have backed Kante, Jorginho, and Kovacic to link the midfield and attack because they've been playing so well recently. But the fact that, so I feel like Tuchel was let down. He was expecting the performance up to the usual standard, and they would be able to bring the ball out from the back and then link into the attack. And all three were poor. Now, apparently Kante was ill. Jorginho had a knock, and then Kovacic, I don't think there was any excuse for him. But yeah, and he said along the lines of maybe it was his fault. But
Interesting.
I didn't mind the initial setup. I thought it made a lot of sense.
I raised an eyebrow.
It just ended up being really defensive, and then he was so slow to change it. Whenever last week he was really quick to change it. Halftime, it's not working. We'll change it up.
Yeah.
Instead of flipping it on its head as to what happened last week, and bringing on an attack midfielder as opposed to taking one off. It took him ages to do it, and that's the bit I have a problem with Tuchel. He should have changed it quicker. I've spoken a lot about it.
Yeah, that was a
Take a breath.
comprehensive analysis there from Fergal. I did
Take a
raise
breath.
a little bit of an eyebrow at the starting lineup, to be fair, because it was, I do that sometimes on Football Manager, right? I change something during a game that it's not going well, and then it flips on its head. I win the game, and then I go with the same lineup. I change too, and then it doesn't work. Like that happens all of the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that Kante change in the Tottenham game was specific to that Tottenham game, and it worked. So 3 in midfield against Man City when they don't really like defensively in the defensive midfield role. I think they sometimes are easy to go through if you're a really high quality ball progressing team, which Chelsea are. Because if you're playing with Fernandinho, I think Fernandinho is susceptible to getting carded. He gets away with it a lot. But if the referee manages to catch one from the first or second foul, you might have him early on the ropes on a yellow card.
Yeah.
And then you can like have more freedom of ball progression. But yeah, it did end up very defensive, and Chelsea didn't really have a way to get out of the midfield whatsoever. But
it was really defensive, and then it ended up being like the initial setup was really defensive, and then the midfield weren't able to get out of help the defense get out, and then the attack, like Werner's first touch and hold play has never been good. Lukaku should be better, and those two, like whenever they got the chance to get hold of the ball and keep it and bring the team up the pitch, they failed, and then it was just like a knock-on cyclical effect. Team couldn't get out, couldn't even service Lukaku, Werner.
Yeah, he just had a really poor game. Like the one looking he was straight through on goal, and then he stopped and then turned back again, and then I think it was Ruben Dias.
Was it
Werner? Yeah, and then he.
I thought Werner was out of the two. I thought he actually was okay.
Do you think so?
So I thought at times he brought it up the pitch, and he made a couple of half chances. Out of everyone on the pitch, he'd be one of the ones that actually wouldn't be given too much criticism for, because again, to his own standard, because I think it's what you expect.
I'll tell you what, George. Last week you made this wild claim that you have like some problems with Chelsea going forward, and then what you said exactly happened during the game. Talk to us.
Yeah.
How did he see it? How did he see it coming?
Yeah, you know, Ali, sometimes you just get these premonitions, don't you? For me, the best way to describe Chelsea in this game, and actually for quite a large percentage of other games as well, is flat. And it's both in the sense that we had no tempo or intensity when trying to break, from what I could see. And then beyond that, we were flat in our back line, and we were flat in the midfield, and we were flat up front. So effectively, when we got the ball, Jorginho drops deep and to make a triangle. But Kovacic and Kante both occupied, pretty much on a level playing field to Jorginho.
There's no one ahead of Jorginho for him to get it forward.
Yeah, that's why I thought the lineup was strange.
So my problem with that formation is the only outball in terms of a progression is towards Lukaku and Werner.
Yeah.
One, we've mentioned Werner. Werner dropping deep is not really what you want from him. But it's just not. It's not going to happen. Lukaku should have done it more frequently and should have done it better. But
Lukaku actually, there's one good chance that he had to slip Werner through, and he actually messed up the pass as well.
Yeah.
It was just disappointing from Lukaku. It's a shame to see, but obviously you brush it off with Lukaku. Sorry, go ahead.
It happens. But my other worry is that this game is great. One of the reasons why I think Mount is so vital for this team, and not just Mount, sorry, a player in who occupies the space between the line of Jorginho and the attackers, and what it does is it gives you an outball that's not too long, because a long pass up to Lukaku where he has to control it, and then the only two people around him, Kovacic and Kante, that are coming up from really deep, so he can't just lay it off really quickly. And if he does lay it off, it's either to, it's a ball that's too far, or he might have to go to the wing backs. And what you want from the wing backs is them not taking the ball too soon, because you want them overlapping and getting it high.
Mhm.
The other thing with this formation is Chelsea weren't winning it high enough up for me. Our press it wins us a lot of or gets us a lot of goals.
Yeah.
When you've got two deep sort of midfielders, you don't put any pressure onto City's midfield or and backline in terms of
Also, Mason Mount is
winning
so
the ball.
good at the press as well.
That's it. And I'm not Mount has been poor. He has been poor going forward, definitely. And it's certainly one part of his game that I actually think he definitely needs to start improving. Otherwise, he can be a bit of a liability. But Mount occupying that half space, Mount pressing the midfield of Man City would have been huge for this game. And the reason why we conceded was because we had a really, really low block, and when you have a low block, you get deflections, and it's a shame. We played like we had something to lose, and I think Tuchel said that. We played like we had something to lose, not something to gain from this game.
And just to put a touch on Mount, the one thing we missed was Mount's first touch, as you said, like someone that's like can even take a long pass and control it dead higher up the pitch and then bring everyone up. Like the Werner and Lukaku's first touch would really let them down. There's one first touch. It wasn't even a bad pass into Lukaku, and he just let it run away from him.
Yeah.
And then yeah, it was annoying how defensive we were, and considering how we've beat City recently, it wasn't like anything like we played again. It's like you've got the formula that works and do it. The other thing to say is, just to sort of wrap up, is Man City were brilliant. Man City's pressing was fantastic. They were a lot more free flowing.
That's exactly what changed from the Champions League final. Man City showed a lot. How to put this? A lot like less respect to Chelsea when it comes to being brave and in pressing them and pinning them back. That was the difference. There was Bernardo Silva was playing like a double pivot with Rodri. One was the DM, and then one was the ball progressor. Bernardo Silva is honestly one of the best dribblers in the game.
I love Bernardo.
He's incredible. And I think that's talked about enough.
I always remember him at Monaco, and I remember thinking we need to sign him because the ball was glued to his foot and he just couldn't lose it.
Yeah, there was a clip on the Premier League Instagram channel I think recently, where he falls to the ground and gets back up like Theo Walcott 2012-13 kind of style. Against Newcastle. So yeah, and they were playing this double pivot. One thing about City that I don't quite get is obviously Gabriel Jesus scored the goal from a goal scoring position. So why does Gabriel Jesus play on the right, even if he wants to play on the right? He's the only striker at Man City. Phil Foden was kind of a false nine.
I remember hearing a thing about Pep and like how he doesn't. I don't think he necessarily likes a striker that stays in the 6-yard box. He wants people constantly on the move and constantly coming from like different angles. So I think that's why he probably quite likes having his main goal scorers on the wings and having more of like a false nine style. I remember hearing like he just likes the like diagonal runs, late runs in. He doesn't. I think one thing he tells the strikers is like never be staying still. If you've made the run, go back out again, because and you'll be leaving the space for someone else to make a run in his system. And then when you go back out, if it's still nothing has come from it, then you make another run, so he always likes them to be on the move, and I think that's probably why he felt comfortable not going really in for a striker or another alternative striker as opposed to Kane, and then why he's moving Jesus out on the wing. But yeah, that'd be my thinking. And it's also like every one of those front three is gonna have a go in the middle section. So it's almost like just a coincidence that Jesus ended up being the goal scorer. Like,
Yeah, possibly. I mean, it worked so well against. Well, it's against Norwich. Norwich are relegated already, even though we don't do predictions that early. But
put your house on it.
But yeah, please don't. Please gamble responsibly.
Yeah, that is not financial advice.
That's not financial advice. Yeah, but it did work well, and like they kept going down the side with Gabriel Jesus on the right time and time again, and it worked. And then they did it once, like from then on.
The
really,
other thing, sorry. Now you said that Alonso's been good, but I want to see Chilwell now. That's the other thing.
You're done with Alonso now. See enough.
Oh, and one more point. Sorry.
Go on.
Ruben Loftus-Cheek. He was tidy. He was one of
cool.
He didn't do anything spectacular, and then people go, "Oh my God, Ruben Loftus-Cheek is back. He's incredible." He was very tidy. Couple nice turns, couple nice dribbles. Nothing spectacular, but I think he's fourth choice. I don't know what's going to happen with Saul because unless one of the other four midfielders drops off a cliff in performance, including Loftus-Cheek, but I think Loftus-Cheek's ahead of him.
Yeah,
Tuchel's spoken really highly of him, and yeah, Loftus-Cheek, you'll see more of him than Saul, and I don't know what they're going to do with him. I wouldn't be surprised if he returned back in January.
I really, really hope Ruben Loftus-Cheek reaches the level he was at in 2019, the year you won the Europa League, and then there was this random friendly against New England Revolution. But just before the Europa League final, he tore his Achilles and never really got back to that level yet. But he's going to have a great career. All right, moving on then to the team that remains undefeated in the Premier League, Liverpool. 3-3 against Bradford. It wasn't even a Desmond, for God's sake. Why? How did we manage to concede 3 against Brentford? Brentford are the best promoted team by far and away. Yeah. They're going to be absolutely fine. And if they carry on, that momentum, they will be a constant team in the Premier League. Only 6 games in, small sample size, all of that. But they're extremely smart. But we were incredible. I don't want to say stupid is strong. It's quite a strong word. But we saw the same mistake. We conceded pretty much the same goal twice. And Alexander-Arnold missing out on headers. And 3 players around him with no support whatsoever. That's the frustrating bit, that we saw a mistake happen and then we didn't fix it.
Well, what would be the fix? You sub Trent off and put Gomez there, or
no? You simply have a midfielder tracking back. So Henderson's the right-sided midfielder. He needs to be back. The goals came. They're not from fast breaks necessarily. They were from like actual build-up.
Oh, you can see it coming a mile off. Like, they're all queued up at the back post. Like,
exactly. You have three men and 1 man. Like when it's crossed. Like if the 3 men don't win the ball, they're not amazing, aren't they? So if you can, go on.
Like Brentford, like they're quite unorthodox in how they're scoring goals, but it's all like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Why haven't more teams done that?
Yeah.
Why don't you just chuck a load of people at the back post?
Yeah.
Well, because maybe if you chuck a load of people at the back post, maybe the other teams see it coming, and then they defend with the good numbers, and then they counterattack because you have 3 players out of the game. But we've done the same mistake twice. So frustrating. But the kit looked bad. That's another feedback thing I had. The kit is absolutely shocking.
I like it.
The kit is no. I'm not gonna hear it. The kit is terrible. The yellow color the tone of the yellow color is pretty horrific. Those checkers are not great.
My favorite, but I like it.
Nah. How? What's the sure out of 10 for that kit?
It's just 7, 6.
7, yeah.
Slander.
6 or 7, yeah.
2. 1 point for the fact that it's a kit. 2 is that they had an idea.
There's definitely.
That's it. That's 2 out of 10.
I'm trying to think of a 2 off the top of my head. There's definitely worse kits. Definitely.
It's fair enough, and because the checkers are really small, so you don't see them from like the direct.
I like the checkers. The checkers make it.
Oh, come on, Fergal, come on.
The little checker trimming is lovely. No, I like that. I like that.
Nah, no. All right, let's move on from that. God, yeah, but let's take more positive things out of the game, I suppose. Curtis Jones, what a strike, son! What a strike!
Oh no! I'm not having that.
Deflection, wasn't it?
No.
No, it was a deflection, but he hit it really clean, and it was barely a deflection. It would have gone in anyway, in my opinion.
It's poor defensive positioning. He's too deep, and you're absolutely guaranteed to have a really horrible deflection if you're that close to your keeper.
It's not a horrible deflection.
Yeah, it is.
Nah, it barely glanced.
It's going straight at the keeper.
No, it wasn't going straight at the keeper. It barely glanced. It was a good strike. He hit it clean, stayed hit. It barely glanced at the defender. And I'll tell you what, Curtis Jones is a great player. He's going to have a great career, all right?
It's poor positioning from the defender.
He scored from 30 yards. You don't expect him to have a shot from that sort of distance where he 2-2 down. And he skied one before that. He skied one before that, but he tried again, and he scored. Guy's reward. All right?
I'm more impressed by that. Was it? I think it was
if I were Liverpool, I would actually wouldn't want him to score that goal because he's never going to hit one of those again. But he's looking to keep trying.
Yeah, he's quick playing.
He is determined. Determination.
Was it on his debut or in an FA Cup game? And he
FA Cup game, Everton. He has it in him.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, no, that was a great goal. In fairness to him.
Yeah,
no, he's a solid wee player.
He is a solid player.
See how he gets on.
Yeah,
we've not. Sorry to cut you off there.
Nah, it's sorry.
Sort of tangent. We've not seen the and it's completely understandable, but we've not seen the same Van Dijk as there was last year in terms of maybe even just leadership levels. Like I don't know, there's something about him that seems to be missing currently, and I don't know how to describe it, but he just
Ligament,
as involved.
Maybe
he's not as involved in the game. Like even build up like last year in Liverpool. Well, not last year. Sorry. Sort of build up in Liverpool's previous years.
It's easy for you to say.
And he's been a key part of everything that happens in that team. But he just seems to go a little bit quiet in games now. I don't. Hopefully, we'll see him return to his best. I mean, hopefully not as a Chelsea fan, but hopefully as a football fan.
Ahead of this weekend, there was a post. I think it was from the Redmen TV, obviously really prominent Liverpool YouTube channel. They had a load of metrics where Virgil van Dijk was the first in the Premier League, but positionally though, and in build-up play, those two areas, like, he does get caught in the wrong position sometimes, but in build-up, I think he's. It's just a case of getting that little bit of sharpness back, but also defensively, I think he is a little bit cautious, a little bit more cautious than before. Sometimes he would commit to the ball and you don't see him like just absolutely shrugging the attacker off or like
he
leaning back.
Tony at one point though.
He did, yeah. I liked it.
And Tony's a tough fella to bully. I don't think too many centre backs will be doing that to him.
It's the natural tendencies of Virgil van Dijk, but he sometimes kind of holds back a little. But yeah, I personally don't have any worries with Virgil van Dijk or Joel Matip. To be fair, it was those two goals that were conceded from the same spot. It's Liverpool's midfield seeing something coming from a mile off and not committing defensively is the little bit of the worry from that game. But we're still undefeated. Let's take the positive. Let's go again. And yeah, other Premier League games happened this weekend. Leeds United, another wild shout from George. He thought the squad might not be good enough. They played with a couple really young players. To be fair, they have an injury. Can we call it crisis? I think we can.
For centre back. Yeah, your man Chris. I watched this game. They a good first half. And maybe should have been more than 1-0 up. Rafinha's their main man, and everything's going through him.
What a goal by Rafinha as well.
And and Click is looking a bit. Has been one of the better players at the start of the season.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like the way they were really good in the first half, and had West Ham pinned back for large parts of it. Second half, West Ham came into it, but again, it was quite an even game. And then it's like the quality of Antonio that makes the difference. And
he is
brilliant. I saw enough good things in Leeds that I think they've got a bit of an easier run
Mhm.
And I think they'll start picking up points now. And yeah, if I tell you what, we FPL tip, I think I'd be putting a couple elite. I'm definitely trying to get Rafinha in my FPL team.
Yeah.
I have Rafinha
Um,
in the FL. I've had it since the start. He's been delivering.
I had him and then got rid of him because Leeds weren't doing well.
Oh, interesting.
But yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, they'll come good. I don't think it's a crisis just yet. But
No.
I was a bit worried before because the performances weren't improving. But although they lost today, the performance was actually better and more dominant, back to what they were previously in the first half, and then just couldn't finish it off in the second.
To be clear, it was yesterday, Saturday the 25th. We're recording on the Sunday, the day where Raul Jimenez scored again after 10 months.
Yeah.
That was a really moment. That was a great moment, and it's such
Great
a good goal
goal
as
as
well. Very
Great goal.
really calm. Like, and when you're a striker that hasn't scored for that long and in Raul's case been what he's been through, it's a life-changing incident almost. Yeah, to get through on goal and then realize he has to beat one last defender and does it and slot it away was so good. It was honestly one of the moments
Anybody
of
have
the weekend.
Sa in their team?
Anybody? What?
Jose Sa,
Jose
the
Sa.
goalkeeper, got the assist for it. So if you,
Oh, yeah, he did.
and a clean sheet, and you
Like-
end up with 13 points. If you had him in your team, you're doing well.
You know what? It's good that you brought up that point because Raul Jimenez hold up play before the goal. It's quite good as well. But yeah, Wolves winning a massive game. Sees them shoot right up the table. George?
They were poor though. They were poor. Southampton were definitely better.
Oh.
They created better chances throughout the whole game. Wolves with I mean, looking from what I've seen, Wolves were fairly fortunate to win that. I'd say the big chances fell to Southampton, and they probably should have put a few away before that happened. But it is a cracking goal.
Yeah, your point about Wolves being poor is probably fair. I haven't watched the game to be fair, but yeah, here we go. Wolves win. That's what matters.
Ali, you're meant to be an expert.
Well, I
Don't
was
let them behind the
coaching.
curtain.
I was coaching. Okay, I was coaching. I coach on weekends, but I watch the
Coaching
games back.
Future youth.
Yeah,
Future
coaching
youth,
the
future prospects. They
Future
are youth
prospects.
now.
Exactly. There are a couple good players that I coached today, to be fair, for their age. Manchester United 0, Aston Villa 1. Yes! I love that result.
Yeah, it's amazing. I've seen so many memes of Fernandez sort of like head in hands, and it's when you know you'll never take another penalty for Man United ever again.
Yeah,
That was incredible. I think that was more of a highlight than the actual goal.
It
was
what?
Martinez psyching out.
Just amazing, wasn't it? Just like
that's incredible.
And then
apparently, he did that dance when they won a shootout in Copa America last summer as well.
Yeah, what a legend.
It's a thing, apparently. Yeah, what a legend. I love him. Everton 2, Norwich 0. I mean, Norwich are down. We've established that from last time.
Yeah.
Leicester 2, Burnley 2. A Desmond, including 3 goals from Jamie Vardy.
Yeah, I think me and Fergal were discussing this off pod, but we think Burnley would be absolutely fine this season. They actually should be picking up more points than they have. They should have beat Leeds. They were decent against Arsenal.
Decent against Liverpool as well.
They were good against Liverpool, and they were good again. But Jamie Vardy is an absolute top quality finisher. Scored 3 this game, 1 own goal, 2 for Leicester. But Leicester slow burning so far. I think they'll pick it
one
up,
to keep an eye on, isn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting.
And it's strange that like if you look at their bench, like the likes of Madison's on their bench, like there's some players that you would expect to be starting that maybe aren't. And yeah, one to keep an eye on. I think I'd love to get a Leicester fan on. If anybody out there knows one, it would be very interesting to hear what their thoughts, because it's an interesting point in their history, on their recent history, I should say, because they came so close to fourth, and now they're nowhere near. They're not going to get fourth this year. I'm very confident saying that.
It's a problem in football where success brings about expectations, and it doesn't matter what size club you are. If you're successful for 1-2 seasons in a row, there just seems to be added weight on you, and we should probably reflect and realise that actually Leicester aren't a big top 4 team, and
No,
probably
they
will
never
will
have
be.
been, but that was
Yeah.
their aspirations, and they've. What I'm trying to say is, I feel like they've missed their window to get into
Yeah,
it.
I agree.
And it's gonna take well, they're pretty good at it, but it's gonna take another few really good signings, a few more ins and outs to get another go at it, because it's so hard to keep up. Like United, Liverpool were probably the closest team, but now they've got their full strength back to what they were.
Mm-hmm.
And United, all the teams have spent loads, and Man City didn't need to spend much, and they brought Jack Grealish in or whatever. So that's what they're up against. But Burnley, look, they're really tidy at times, and they're causing every team they play problems.
Set
I
pieces,
remember
set pieces.
even Liverpool. I remember them causing some issues like
Maxwell Cornet
No,
with
but-
the goal there. George was saying,
Yeah.
That incredible finish
Great goal.
on the turn. That's the kind of goal I like to see. But they haven't won a game yet. But there are 5 teams that haven't won a game yet. Tells you maybe it's how early it is in the season. Still 6 games for everyone, including
That
Watford.
seems like quite a lot of teams. Is it for 6 games gone?
No winners.
5 teams haven't won. Yeah.
Yeah, there are quite a few relegated. Well, Leeds are going to be fine, I think. And then, Norwich are down. I think we can establish that now. Newcastle is one team that haven't won yet. They drew against Watford 1-1.
It's a similar story to Burnley. I think they were really unlucky in that Watford game. They absolutely pounded them. And a late goal by I think it was it Sarr? Yeah,
Sarr.
Ismaila Sarr.
Who is a great player. But Ben Foster made a number of top saves, an error, but a number of top saves afterwards to make up for it. And it should have been 2-3-0 Newcastle by the time it was at the end. So they'll be ruining those mistakes, and they really need to start picking up points.
He needed the redemption arc for the video, so he has to put in a mistake. to then be able to do the redemption part of it. Otherwise, there's no start, middle, and end. You see, it's not as good.
William Chu Seekong just opened a YouTube channel. So, quick question for you guys: who's the most likely player now to open a new YouTube channel out of all the players in Premier League? Now we have Foster.
Sterling had a go at it, didn't he? And he got KSI on it.
He did, yeah.
I remember that. Who else would be?
I know the least likely to. And
Who's the least likely?
Mark Noble. There's absolutely no chance you see Mark Noble.
Oh, he's got a bit of character. I think that's a bit harsh. I think there's
proper
more...
football man though. Proper football man. He wouldn't do these things.
Smith Rowe would be a terrible YouTube channel. Like he seems like a lovely chap, but not much between the ears. And who was I going to say? Not a footballer, but Mike Dean would have imagine Mike Dean's match day vlogs. How good would they be?
Yeah.
That would be good. I'd love to see that. And I feel like
what?
maybe near the end of his career, he goes, I could do with increase my profile. Start the match day vlogs. Yeah, exactly. You're gonna need to make a few dollars.
George,
imagine the views on that.
Making money sign.
Him reviewing his own game. It has GoPro on his chest.
That's such a good idea. I'll tell you what, I would love to hear more from referees after games and what they were thinking, sort of decisions. Because I have that question for them sometimes, a lot of the time, in fact. So I'd love to. Generally, in football, you want to hear more from referees.
Because what are they going to do? Sack him? He's already retiring. You know what I mean? That's what my thing would be. I think he said recently he's going to carry on another couple of years or so.
I'll tell you, Alan Maximan would be one, I think.
Yeah. Cracking Twitter.
All right. And then the last game of the game week, we were recording this on the Sunday. Monday's Crystal Palace Brighton. Crystal Palace Brighton. Where if Brighton win, they go top of the league.
The weirdest derby in English football.
the weirdest derby in English football, but it has quite a good story. I think
It does. It does. It's a proper derby. It's not even like the it's all back in Terry Venables' days and stuff. And
Yeah.
I can't remember the full story, but yeah, no, it's a fierce rivalry. Both of them would consider the other to be their biggest rival.
Mhm.
And it's usually it's usually an alright game as well.
Yeah, I look forward to watching it tomorrow.
Patrick Vieira was talking about how he learned about the derby in the Amazon documentary that nobody's watched unless you're a Crystal Palace fan. And apparently it's mentioned in that. I forgive me for not doing the research and watching it. You know, I had better things to be doing with my time.
Yeah.
But
Whoa.
but I'm sure it's great.
If Brighton win, they go top of the league, and it's because Chelsea lost, Liverpool somehow drew, and nobody seems to want the top of the league. So I guarantee that Crystal Palace are going to win. That's my prediction on that one. But yeah,
That's just no bias there.
no bias there at all. No bias there at all. It's just the fact that it's just the fact that nobody seems to be wanting to go top the Premier League. So if Brighton have the chance, they won't take it. That's the pattern here. But yeah, no bias whatsoever. We're a professional podcast. So speaking of professionalism, Fergal, you love a bit of Tammy.
Yeah, no bias. No
bias at all. No bias whatsoever. But yeah, tabs on Tammy. What do you make of him this weekend?
Tammy, yeah. So I can't remember when we recorded the last one, but he scored against Udinese. I'll give another mention anyway. And tidy wee finish. Only a second, but he's got a few goal contributions. And then this evening, as we record, the Rome derby. I saw a little bit of it, and he was fantastic. No bias. He was
no
fantastic,
bias whatsoever.
and the rest of the team let him down. But he did not score or assist. No, from all accounts, though, he's doing all right, and he's still the main man for Roma up top. But yeah, not too much to report this week,
except a 3-2 loss.
To see Roma lose against Lazio. Absolutely, Lazio, one of my teams. I despise.
Yeah.
No bias though. No bias. Professionalism.
No bias.
No, absolutely biased.
Yeah, no, Lazio, horrible. I'm gonna.
The thing is, the annoying thing is that they've actually been an interesting and good team in recent years. But yeah, if you read into from what I know about the fan base,
the fan base is
it's not good.
Little history.
Obviously, no. But Jose will do well. You know,
Jose's playing decent football. Yeah,
Spurs are clearly missing him.
Surprisingly,
you know, you don't get too big for your boots.
Spurs were holding him back.
Yeah. You know, don't get too big for your boots.
The only team he's not won a trophy at, I'm sure. Apart from Roma, but you know, I'm sure he'll win a trophy at Roma. It's inevitable, and it's just a Spursy thing to another Spursy thing to put in the history books. No bias here, though. No bias here.
No bias here. Not a Chelsea fan at all, are you?
No.
All right. Now we introduce a new bit to just another football podcast, and it's fantasy related. Fergal, why don't you introduce this?
Okay, so I actually haven't come up with a name for this or a theme tune like I did the previous quiz.
Professional podcast.
I know, fantasy player pick, something like that. So each week, each one of us is going to pick a player. The aim is to try and pick the player that's going to have the most fantasy points. We're going to create a league table. So if I pick, I literally just thought of two players when I was going to say that don't play in the Premier League. I thought of Tammy Abraham and Dzeko. Roma is on my mind. What I was going to say is if you pick Saka and he scores at the weekend, whatever that is, 5 points, you get 5 points added to the league table. Something like that. We're going to pick each one. You can only pick one player each season. We have a little...
each game week, right?
Each game week rather than season.
Yeah, one player, but you're only allowed to pick them once the whole season. That's what.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right.
So you have to be careful with your picks. So if you pick Salah, but I put a little bit of a wild card in there. But there's 1 week you're allowed to triple captain your pick. One week you're allowed to pick a player twice, but only once.
Okay.
So, again,
that is spicy.
Those 2 wild cards. Yeah, let's keep it interesting. So my
Ah.
player this week,
All right.
going with the theme of Norwich being absolutely terrible and Burnley, I think
Good
they're
job.
gonna come good. I think this is their time, and I thought I don't want to go for a big hitter straight away. So I've gone. Well, he is a big hitter in a different way. It's Chris Wood.
Love it.
He's a pretty massive hitter.
Mm.
That's my player I'm going for. I think up against Norwich, I think I'll do all right.
All right.
George, who are you going for?
Go on,
Yeah,
George.
I can't avoid the man. I absolutely love him. I'm going to go with Antonio. I think he is absolutely exceptional. Brentford
Against
conceded-
Brentford.
Yeah, Brentford conceded 3 against Liverpool. They'll concede 5 against West Ham.
Oh, okay.
Antonio goes. Yeah.
Antonio's better
But the
than
reason
Frederick
why
Combined.
is his dribbling and his first touch has just come on so much this season. He's been absolutely fantastic, and I just back him to score every single game. So
I-
Yeah.
I'm going to set a precedent and set a really good standard for the first game we can go with him.
All right.
I think that's a really good pick. Especially because he's in a hot streak of form, and also as good as Antonio is, bit of an injury risk. So I think it's good trying to get him while he's in form.
Yeah.
Now, Ali, what are you thinking?
Can I pick from the same team you picked, or does it have to be different teams?
It doesn't have to be different teams. It could be the same player.
Okay. Then it's quite an easy pick. I'm gonna go with Tarkowski because he's gonna score from a set piece.
Clean sheet probably as well. Yeah.
Clean sheet. That's like another point that's like almost guaranteed. Well, they're gonna probably concede 3, and then a week from now we're gonna be okay.
Red card.
What were you thinking? Red card as well. We'll see though. But I think it's quite the safe pick to go with someone who will probably score from a set piece and get a clean sheet as well.
And here's Harry to tell us his pick.
So my pick for this weekend is Bukayo Saka. Bit of Arsenal bias in there, of course, but I think he looks back to his best on the right. I think it's his best position. I think it kind of gives him more ways to threaten the opposition fullback from there, and I think he'll just carry on where he's left off against Spurs. To be honest with you, I think he could really trouble the Seagulls down on the south coast. So I'm tipping boisterous Bukayo Saka this weekend.
All right, and with that, with another new bit introduced by Fergal. Maybe next week he'll introduce us to another. You never see it coming with just another full podcast.
They just come to me. I was a bit late with this one. It probably wasn't nice to start the whole season with this, but it's still early on. We'll give it a go.
It's only 6 game weeks in. But thanks, Fergal, for introducing that bit and for all the comprehensive insight on Chelsea Man City at the start there.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And George, thank you as well for always being here and making very good shouts and incredibly good predictions. And thanks to me for hosting. And thanks to Harry for being with us. Well, tomorrow, but then early on the podcast. It's just another full podcast is works a little different than anybody else. But thank you guys. We will be back probably this time next week. See you soon. Cheers. Bye. Oh, happy birthday, Harry. One more time. Happy birthday.